Representative Moore, my classmate,
Thank
you
you.
are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Fox and Ranking Member McGovern. I'm a little congested here today, so it won't be possible for me to be my loud self. But you know, I'm really glad to be the last one to speak on this distinguished panel, because I think that you've heard two different arguments here. On one hand, you hear about people getting $11,000 more tax breaks at the lower end of the income spectrum. You know, it's all these benefits. And on the other hand, you've heard members talk about the draconian cuts and the impact that it'll have on hospitals and on poor people. So whose report do you believe? And I think that this is the conundrum for the American people. Well, given my, in my own faith tradition, I look toward Matthew 7:16, which says, by their deeds, you will know them. And no matter what, I know many of us have been here for many years, Madam Chair, more years than you and I have been here. And people have already decided what their legacy in this place will be. But no matter what you think your legacy was, today will seal your legacy. Your legacy will be sealed in the next 36 hours by virtue of how you vote on this bill. And I think that the American people are now seeing the soul of the formerly grand old party. This Republican Party is nothing like the GOP. You know, the Committee on Ways and Means was asked to increase the U.S. debt by trillions of dollars. And boy, did we meet that mark with this bill. We done good with regard to meeting that mark. And what did the American people buy with the $4 trillion in debt? Massive tax goodies for billionaires at the cost of 17 million Americans losing health care coverage and more hungry school children. By their deeds, you will know them. This is the moment for all of us to stand on the shores of the Rubicon, where you can never go back on your legacy. As Senator Tillis from the great state of North Carolina, he has decided that he cannot go back, whatever happens in North Carolina, that he would rather resign than to go back on his values as a human being. So as we once again consider the billionaires' bonanza bill, which of course the Senate made worse. I mean, it's hard to imagine, but they did. The Republican senators found a way to provide more debt, more lost health coverage, and stifling clean, renewable energy of the future. You know, our nation's founding fathers entrusted this House of Representatives to tax and spend. They felt that the House would act more responsibly with this awesome power because we are responsive to the people. And yet, this legislation is nothing short of a total betrayal of the founding fathers' faith in this body. You know, I take particular, and I'm representing the Ways and Means Committee, we take particular offense at the characterization of millions of citizens as cheats, fraudsters, and wastes in order to justify the cuts. The dehumanization of people has been extraordinary in order to create the narrative. You know, because this bill, in fact, will make this country sicker, less educated, hungrier, and deeper in debt. And for what? So that billionaires and corporations can have more and more and more. By their deeds, Madam Chair, you shall know them. Back in May, when we went through the paces on this bill, we had a bill that handed out billions and billions of dollars to millionaires. In fact, when we looked at this bill, on average, a person making over $1 million got a tax cut of $81,500. The bill in front of us, sent back by the Senate, has an average tax cut for a person making over $1 million at $96,000. That's right. The United States Senate took our House bill and said $81,000 in tax cuts just isn't enough for millionaires. We got to give them even more tax cuts. Now, let's check in on the average Americans who are teaching our children and building our roads in Milwaukee and Greensboro and New Braunfels and Rock Hill or Bloomington. In May, we learned that on an average, a household that makes under $50,000 got a tax cut of just 73 cents per day. That was about $247. Spend it wisely, America, because it's going to cost you your health care and your child's education. By their deeds, you will know them. And by the deeds of the United States Senate, we saw that we provided even more and more and more to millionaires and billionaires. The Senate saw that 73 cents a day that we were providing the average American was just too much. So they clawed back a nickel. That's right. If you made under $50,000 on average, you were getting 68 cents a day. That's not even enough to buy a Snickers. And that's what the Senate did. They took away the 73 cents a day and made it 68 cents a day. By their deeds, you shall know them, American people. When we were here in May, we learned that in just 2027 alone, the top 0.1%, not 1%, 0.1%, the richest of the rich, that is, people making over $2 million a year, the people who we are told pay the most taxes, well, they got $50 billion in tax cuts just in 2027. $50 billion with the capital B. That was a House bill. But you know what? That $50 billion just wasn't enough for the Senate. They thought that because they objected to it not making enough cuts, so they decided to squeeze more and more and more from the old, infirm, and children. So they moved that number to $60 billion that they gave tax cuts to. That's right. In 2027 alone, the top 0.1% got $60 billion in tax cuts. Now, imagine the need in this country for better schools, child care, and job training. Imagine the needs we could address with the money. Nope. Republicans want to give a stimulus boost to the super yacht market. Madam Chair, back in May when we were here, I expressed my deep sadness that in order to, quote unquote, pay for these tax cuts, Republicans were kicking millions of the most vulnerable Americans off health care. Well, you heard it here from this panel. The Senate upped that number to 17 million people. What will we do? What will the Americans in nursing homes do when that money is moved from health care to the banks of the wealthy? Put them into the streets and hope for the best? Maybe they can get online and do a GoFundMe for all their health care needs. By their deeds, you will know them. Finally, Madam Chair, when we were here last May, we had a bill that the CBO said would blow up the deficit by $2.4 trillion. And when you add interest costs to that, you get $3 trillion. I know we have a lot of people among our Republican colleagues that don't like debt, but for some reason, they like this debt. And the Senate saw this, and they were thinking, gee, $3 trillion in debt, we can afford a little bit more debt. Why don't we just juice that number and make the debt number $4 trillion? Yep. So I don't know what it means to be a fiscal hawk, because if you vote for this bill, you're adding $4 trillion to the debt. You know, I know that Republicans have gone on TV for months and months and months, solemnly insisting to the American people that this bill is going to cut the debt, that this will not hurt anybody on Medicaid, just those lazy bums and and, unworthy people. They've given us fantastical growth projections coming out of the White House. They're going to look at revenue from tariffs that are going to save the country and generate all these savings. Well, by their deeds, you're going to know them. Maybe this is what the Senate was thinking when they said that trillions of dollars in tax debt, we don't know the exact number yet, but somewhere between $4 to $5 trillion in tax debt equals zero. I got 3 great-granddaughters. I don't know how in the world I'm going to teach them that math. So, Madam Chair, I'll close with this. I know that sometimes here we're prone to exaggerations. I've heard a lot of exaggerations here today about how, people are going to get $7,200 more in income and all these tax breaks. I don't know, a lot of drama around here. But I'm not being dramatic when I say that this lipstick on the pig is the worst bill I've seen since I've been in Congress. Showering millions on millionaires and billionaires with tax cuts they don't need, sticking our grandkids with the tab, kicking 17 million people off health care, cutting the neediest off of SNAP benefits, cutting off our clean energy future. The moral failings of this building are just too many to count. And yet, rather than step back and ask ourselves, is this really what we want to do? We're barreling toward an arbitrary deadline. And I'll tell you, the American people will not be celebrating on the 4th of July. They'll be looking at us, and when they ask me, what's the difference between Democrats and Republicans? I will refer them to H.R. 1, the Senate amendment to H.R. 1, and say, by their deeds, you will know them. And I yield back.